What's up, everybody? Psych out back here. It's been a long time. Probably since the last tournament, maybe a month or so. Sorry about that. Just been distracted with moving and work and things like that. So, hey, we're in the Valkyrie Tournament now, and in this video, I'm going to show you a Master Tournament victory. Unfortunately, I made a mistake of playing a game afterwards and doing some other stuff, so we won't have all 10 games. I think we'll have nine, the last 9 games. You'll see I did lose in round 2, and I continued at round 2, which also cost the same amount as starting over at round 1. And so it cost us 200 gems, but otherwise we won 10 out of 11, including 9 straight. So let's go ahead and claim our prizes. Okay, Black Witch, that's fine. Not really what I was hoping for. I was kind of hoping for a phoenix or a dragon. I've got a lot of legendaries that are close to leveling up. Okay, Inferno, that's fantastic. Now I only need 78 more to get to the level 10 Inferno. Wow, and a lot of angels too. That's cool. Okay. And we've picked up another legendary. Let's see what it is. It's the Shaman. That's pretty cool. And a bunch of rages. Okay. And still some more. 10 Black Knights, that's awesome. We're getting close to leveling up that Black Knight. And some Orc Warriors. Okay. So let's go take a look at the games. So yeah, I accidentally played a regular game afterwards. So this will be game 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and 2. So here's round 2. I think this game, as I recall, my opponent did not play very well. So if you're going to play with the statue, you should almost always put it at your opponent's castle. My opponent put it in front of his own castle. Strange. And I've just started off with an angel here. There's not really a lot to do. I'm kind of waiting to see what my opponent's going to do. And he's waiting and plays the skeleton swarm, but I get my vampire right out in front, which is perfect. And it's going to take out that skeleton swarm and continue to gain health from the angel, and it's going to take out that statue as well. Okay, so my opponent tries to kill the angel. Unfortunately, that didn't do anything because I had the shaman's double was in that lane, and now my opponent plays really badly. I mean, none of these things are going to do anything. Arrows don't hit the angel. Putting cards in front of the skeleton swarm against, I mean, that doesn't do anything. There's not going to be anything done there. There's just really, I mean, this is just pretty bad. Putting cards in front of the vampire at your castle is never a good idea. It just gives the vampire more health. So basically, got a free win there. So that was round 2 after my continue. So round 3 was against the Valkyrie Chan. I played this person, I think, twice in this run. This person was playing a sort of an overtime deck. With the deck that I'm playing, I do pretty well against overtime decks. There's certain kinds of overtime decks that can give it more trouble. But with this deck, this sort of standard overtime deck like this is not going to have any problems. And so here, I don't know that my opponent's playing an overtime deck yet. And so I'm just trying to get some cards out and see what my opponent's going to do. Opponent goes to the Black Witch. I'm ready with the Inferno. Notice that this deck has 2 Infernos in it, which is pretty critical for dealing, for dealing with the Black Witches. And here I told myself, be prepared for when he plays the vampire. And then when I played my vampire in the top lane, I sort of distracted myself and wasn't ready enough to protect my protect the Druid with the win. So oh well. But we're off to an okay start. My opponent's used a lot of cards. I now know that he's playing an overtime deck. And I'm not too worried because I know I've got a lot of creatures coming. I have lots of good defense. Against an overtime deck, you almost always want to have an Inferno in your hand, because the key card for every overtime deck is, and I don't know why my opponent decided to save so many arrows. I mean, they're going to kill a bunch of stuff with the arrows, but that's a ton of arrows. and they didn't actually kill everything, and so it just sort of left. Yeah, now my opponent has to guess. Okay. And that's all fine, but in the meantime, I'm doing plenty of damage, and my opponent has used a lot of cards. And they does okay here. So I've got my freeze, which is, again, a good card to have against the overtime deck, especially if they're going to play a dragon. The freeze is kind of the key card there. But the inferno is a key card against overtime because you want to use it to... Okay, so here I think I pull back with the dragon. Yes, okay. Which is good. I push back there to keep the vampire away. And I go ahead and put the spike statue in front. So the reason I'm holding on to these infernos, even though I have two, I think I do end up using one here eventually, maybe in the top lane. I think I do use one in the top lane. Yeah, pretty sure. Or maybe I guess not. I just decided to abandon the top lane altogether. And that's all fine. Now here's why you want to have a freeze against overtime, because we're just going to destroy everything in that lane. I've played an angel up top because I want to create a second threat, the angel with the vampire combo. I could have played the angel behind my dragon. Again, I'm still holding on to one inferno because, yeah, so again here I've got another freeze to deal with this. That's pretty well played by my opponent, but now I've got another angel with my dragon, and the arrows that he's been saving like crazy just aren't going to do a whole lot. Did kill the vampire. Now it's too little too late with the Black Witch, but I will have an Inferno ready anyway. And at this point, I thought my opponent was just going to quit, but he didn't. So there's the Inferno to deal with the Black Witch. It's just such a common thing that you have to be ready for when you're playing against overtime decks. And, I mean, I just had so many other resources. I mean, my opponent really had no chance there. Okay, so that was round 3. Round 4, I didn't know this player. I felt like I should have, but I didn't remember this player. And it didn't take long to figure out he was playing a rush deck. You know, I have an okay draw. Having the vampire and the druid are always good cards to start out with. Or, sorry, not the vampire. The vampire is good, but I mean, having the jester and the druid are usually pretty good cards when you're dealing with a rush deck. Although my opponent probably didn't have his best draw. He's got a decent run so far. I think I decided to go with the spike statue up in the top, yeah, because I think, okay, I'm going to shut that down, and then I'll figure out how to deal with this bottom lane later. I decided to go ahead and Inferno because I just want to weaken that Jester and get rid of that little stack with the Pirate there. My opponent decides to go with the Pirate to take on the spike statue, which is, you know, maybe is okay. Here, I sort of had wished I had saved my Vampire, but oh well. I knew a wind had to be coming, so there we go. Wind is a really nice card to use against against rush decks because it's well, it's good for two things. One, okay, I don't think I got up here in time. No, I didn't. But I'm able to freeze there. So against rush decks, wind is good against their catapults usually. Okay, so my opponent didn't quite get that genie where he wanted. It was a little too tight there. And here, now my opponent has the catapult, and so you've got to be ready with the Black Witch. And opponent probably could have tried to save the catapult by playing that in the top lane, but in this, to me, this is a different style of rush deck because it's a rush deck with what's the card? Oh, the demon in it. Not a lot of people play rush decks with demon, but anyway. So that was round 4, was it? Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so round 5 saw me against Valkyrie Chan again. Notice here, Valkyrie Chan switched decks to a Reaper deck. This Reaper decks have been extremely popular in this tournament. A little later, we'll look at some of the top scores right now, and you'll see that they're almost all playing Reaper decks. Don't exactly have a great draw. Again, the Druid is nice against decks that are fast, and so is the Spike Statue. I play the Druid. Fortunately, the Druid picks up a couple of those skeletons. And that's a mistake. Probably should not have played that there. Probably should have played the Storm Elemental further back. So anyway, kill that, because against, having played plenty of Reaper decks myself. But even still, things aren't really in great shape here. Able to push that back. And that was kind of my plan. I keep thinking, okay, my opponent's got to have a standard bearer here at some point. And here comes the dangerous stuff. Yeah. So luckily, I've got Executioner to deal with this now. He's, my opponent's played, I think, not exactly an outstanding Reaper deck. Here I should have been quicker with an Inferno, but I just decided to try to can the whole lane. But my opponent switched lanes, so that was kind of creative. But unfortunately, it's not going to work. These angels up at the castle are just going to, end the game there. So, yeah, against Reaper decks, you just have to survive early on, as everybody knows. So let's see. That was 1, 2, 3, 4... So that was actually 5. So round 6 against Bonsai Pilot. A very tough opponent. Always plays tough games. And you'll see that this game, had this game gone on for a really long time, I would have lost. I won because I got an early attack and was able to do lots of damage early, because late in the game I was in big trouble. I was just holding on for survival. So this was probably the toughest game I had. And, the deck is, this is really, I would say, is sort of a power deck, a modern version of a power deck. Fortunately, I did not have the wind to save my Dryad there, but I did get to play my Hollow Knight in the top lane, which is good. Well, in the lane that was away from the vampire. So here I thought the Spike Statue was going to kill... yeah, it was going to kill my thing. Yeah, and it didn't. I thought it was going to kill the Hollow Knight, and it didn't. So I put the vampire out there to grab it back, but that ended up being kind of useless. Yeah. So my opponent is trying to stop this stack here. The angel would have been nice. Instead, she just served as a sort of a blocker to keep things going for a little while. And so this is the attack that gets me into good enough position. So there I go with an Inferno. And I'm, too slow with any other Infernos to do enough there. I'm not sure if playing the freeze up there was the best idea. I think it does kill the Dryad, but yeah. Okay. So here you can see my opponent has a pretty tough deck. And I'm in a lot of trouble. So I decided I'm not going to take on the Black Knight head on here. I have a different plan for the Black Knight. Now, of course, I didn't know my opponent was going to have a second Black Knight, but there was my plan right there, was to play the Wind. The problem is the second Black Knight is causing me difficulties now. And again, my opponent's just, playing really well. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know if playing the Jester there was the best idea. I was just trying to keep my opponent off my castle. That was really the game plan there. So we each freeze each other in the top lane. I decide that I need to kill everything in this lane, go Inferno in that lane. Yeah, so Vampire's doing some work, but man, is my opponent got a lot of stuff happening. And I thought I'd get the Vampire up there, but that ended up being a mistake. Also, my opponent just is able to get so many cards out so quickly because of the influence of the Valkyrie that's out there. Is just really making it. Now, the good news is my opponent doesn't have a lot of cards, so they've sort of expended all of their cards, even with the Valkyrie out there, making everything cheaper. Yeah, I can't believe that killed everything. That was kind of surprising. But anyway, we both sort of just kind of did this for a little while. There wasn't a whole lot. Now, this was a dangerous spot. Black Knight with a spike statue in front of it. So I get my own spike statue going on the other side to try to, do some damage to the Black Knight. Yeah, there we go. But now we're headed towards overtime. My opponent's in really good control of pretty much everything. There's not a lot I can do except hope to survive. So, yeah. That's basically what I'm doing here, is just trying to survive. I can push back. I've got the dragon, and at this point my opponent's health is so low that I end up winning. But man, it was a good game, and my opponent was in really good shape. It was there at the end, but just ran out of time. All right, so let's see. That was round 6, I think. 7, 8, 9, and 10. Yeah. So that was round 6, round 7 against Contero. So you'll see that this tournament was really hard. I played so many tough opponents in this tournament. This is maybe one of the hardest master tournaments I won. These opponents I played in the last 4 rounds are just really top-rated opponents. So yeah. When I just don't really know what my opponent's going to do here. I haven't played this deck a ton. I've played a deck similar to it. I just wasn't sure what my opponent's going to do, and ultimately I decided, well, you know what? Let's just keep everything alive here. I'm thinking later on I'm probably going to want to Black Witch that lane, but I also have a freeze. I decided to go for the Inferno there. Might not have been the best decision, but my idea was to go for the Inferno and then get the Vampire out. But unfortunately, my opponent did the same thing, and this is pretty bad here, in a lot of trouble. But I knew eventually I would have to get this Black Witch, and thankfully my opponent didn't have anything to do to stop it, because of the kind of deck here she's playing. So here I just want to push this stack back and get rid of that combination Angel with Spike Statue. So in a lot of ways my opponent's deck is similar to mine. It's a little bit more of a power deck than mine is. My deck is a little bit more of a mixed deck, a little more flexible. And here I'm trying a similar combination to what my opponent did. And my opponent comes with the Black Witch himself there. So we've had a pretty good game so far. Here I think I decided to just go ahead and wait and get the dragon. And so there is the dragon. My opponent counters with the dragon here. May have went for the Black Witch, but it was going for that combination with the angel. So I decided to go with my own dragon. And when my opponent goes Black Witch, I decide, you know what, I'm going to go Black Witch on your good lane and kill everything with the Jester. And again, my opponent has got another one of these deadly combinations, so we have to go Inferno. Luckily, the Inferno hit before the Phoenix got out there. And there my opponent had to guess which lane the Shaman was in, and guessed wrong. But that's a really good place to put the statue. Look at where my opponent has put that statue there, and I cannot get to that egg. And that's a little frustrating. So here I'm going to freeze back so I can kill that dragon. And I think I went ahead and froze it again just to make sure I could kill that thing. Yeah. So now we're okay because my opponent's sort of run out of moves. Yeah. Unfortunately for my opponent, that little combination did not kill my Druid, and the Druid kept coming. And now my opponent's stuck with an Angel in their hand, which really can't do a lot. Here, and we push back to save the Executioner. My opponent could go with a combo with the Angel behind the Vampire, elects not to, decides instead to put the combo in the bottom lane. And I said, you know what, we're almost headed to overtime. I'm just going to kill everything in the bottom lane. You're out of cards. I don't care. If I don't get to your castle, oh well, you're not going to get to mine. And again, another angel combination by my opponent. I'm not too worried. I will kill the angel. This is the advantage of this double inferno deck. And ultimately, the opponent loses in overtime here. But it was a really good game, really hard-fought game against a tough opponent. And that was round 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that was round 7. So round 8, this opponent I did not know. But then the last two were pretty tough. So this opponent I didn't know. This opponent is playing one of the more common decks in the tournament. Of course, I didn't know that in a Reaper deck. Probably made a mistake there. Should have played the Storm Elemental straight away. But went for this little setup, which is something I've not really seen before. And I didn't know what to do because the Spike statue would not help me. So I decided, well, I'm just going to go ahead and weaken the Reaper with my Inferno for right now because I do have a Spike statue. And then I can drop it right in front. Hopefully they don't get the... And my opponent didn't get the... get that down in time, the protection. So I'm doing okay here. We're holding things off. No big deal there. Now my opponent's used both standard bearers, and that's the losing mistake against when you're playing Reaper decks. If you play your standard bearers too quickly, you just get yourself in a position where you can't really do anything. My opponent decides to freeze there. I freeze right back. Wind and all this, but I mean, it's, you know, when you're playing against a Reaper deck, you always have to be wary of some sudden thing that can happen, but this is a pretty impossible chunk of things to break through here. And I'm sitting on 2 Black Witches, I'm sitting on a Dragon. I mean, lots of options in case things get really hairy, but no problem there. So that was round 8. Round 9 against Sir Robin. Sir Robin, definitely one of the toughest opponents out there. Seems like he's constantly playing. And I know his deck. I've even played around with his deck a little bit. Although, I mean, to be quite honest with you, it's a fairly complex deck to play. It's basically a Reaper deck without a Reaper. Which is pretty cool. And I've played similar kinds of decks before, but not quite like this one. So I know, you know, his attack thrives on the standard bearer, just like Reaper decks do. And so I want to be prepared with my Spike statue like I am here. And then I also want to be prepared with the... with the vampire, which I was feeling pretty good because the vampire grabbed all this stuff, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get everything here. But then, man, that little shock just did enough to give him the card he needed back. But I got my wind. It would have been nice to be able to save the against the vampire down there, but unfortunately, that wasn't going to work. Okay, but now I get a stack going that I think is going to be difficult for him to deal with. He gets the angel out too late to pair up with his vampire. And at this point, I think it's pretty much over. Well, this is a kind of a nice move, too, to protect with the Jester. But I've got to freeze to slow everything down. And now it's just, it's all over at this point. I'm going to grab that Hollow Knight, and you know he could try for some combination here, but he knows that there's literally no way to get out of this, even with the Vampire Angel combo. So a really hard game against one of the toughest opponents to beat in the tournament in round 9, and then I drew Grinspoon from round 10. Another tough opponent. I felt like Grinspoon often plays overtime decks, but here, as you see, was playing this Reaper deck that includes an Angel, which has been fairly popular, and he plays it much better than most people. So here I'm pretty worried because I don't really have a great draw. I don't have my Druid. I don't have my Jester. I don't have my Spike statue. I do have my Black Witch, and I do have 2 Infernos, which is nice, but... So here I get the Vampire, and that's a good move because that's the protection takes all the damage there, and I can't really do a lot about it. I decided to throw out the Jester here, thinking I would bait my opponent into playing the Standard Bearer, which he did play. Unfortunately, he played it, and then my wind missed. So here I've got to hurry to get that Inferno, to get rid of all these protections and get rid of all this danger here, and I need to get down. Now, the good news is most of the power, the most important things there died. I need another Inferno so I can get rid of this Angel and everything in this lane. So my opponent's done a lot of damage to my castle, and you know, this deck is still at a threat. I don't have control of the lanes really at all, so I'm going to have to be careful. Okay, so here the opponent has all of these Reapers now, but no, none of the cards you want to go with it. Okay, so here I was going to go with the Angel to kill the Reaper, but ended up not needing that. And here I just said, well, that's it. I'm just going to Black Witch this whole lane. Yeah. And I'm ready with the... yeah, so at this point, it's pretty well over once you get a dragon out. But ready with the wind there to deal with that Reaper. And another dragon, just for good measure. Go ahead and Inferno that lane. And this was a little hairy because it was like, oh, wait a minute. Suddenly, my opponent has a pretty tough combination out there that I did not see coming. The Angel Vampire with protection, but 2 dragons at the castle. Yeah, just not enough. Not enough that could be done there. Okay, so pretty tough games at the end, but that was our Master Tournament win. We can take a look at the standings here. You'll see I'm not very high. Of course, big surprise to see Romain at the top again, as usual. That's a Reaper deck that Romain really plays outstanding. Lopez Lancer has done great with this version of a Reaper deck. And there's Sir Robin, as I mentioned, his no Reaper deck. I think Pinky's been playing a Rush deck, but if that's the deck he's playing, that's not the Rush deck, so that's a different deck. Surge, whose deck we copied. So if you see here, this deck is the deck that we played. This is Surge's deck. Surge is an amazing player. If you look at the trophy level and the castle level, he's castle level 10. He's got over 6,600 trophies, only around 2,100 wins, which is just not that few behind me. And look at those. Oh, no, that's from the tournament. That's the tournament deck. But anyway, that's tournament deck levels. But anyway, that's the deck. He plays a deck like that, and this is the deck he's been using. And I mean, just an outstanding record for somebody at his level. So watch out for Surge. He'll be at the top of the leaderboard. If he keeps playing within the next year, I wouldn't be surprised to see him as the #1 player in the world. Kratos, well, that guy's just a jackass, so we don't have to worry about him. And yeah, so we see that AP, as usual, is doing pretty well. Romain, Lopez Lancer, Pinky, Surge, Lady Neri, Emerenito, Boss Max, Forbello. Let's see, I'll probably be maybe in the top 50. Oh yeah, so there we go. So yeah, we've got a lot of AP players doing well in this tournament again. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.